Hello, my name is Lee Clancy. I am a product marketer here at Fastly. I am also your host for this webinar, Switching Your CDN. Fastly makes migration easy. I have a housekeeping item to cover before we get started. If you have any questions, please put those in the chat and we will have time for Q&A at the end of the webinar. Now I'd like to introduce you to Austin Spires. He is a fellow Fastlian who has been working on developer tools and customer happiness for more years than he would like to put in his bio. He also frequently speaks at conferences and industry meetings. He's originally from Texas. He plays a mean bass and he likes to drink cheap beer. And now with that, I'll turn it over to Austin.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, as Lee said, that's my bio. And when I am not sliding around in an office chair, I am helping our customers get set up with Fastly and really ramp up on our CDN and all the great things that our platform has to offer. We wanted to walk through some of our lessons learned and best practices from doing hundreds and hundreds of these migrations over, honestly, it seems like we're getting pretty close to a decade of our departmental experience with these. So yeah, I'll just cut to the slides and we can get started. Right. Thank you all again for being here. So let's walk through our agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about our services that we can offer for migration for some of our more complex and even just some of our quick services that we offer. But also we want to talk about how to start testing, common issues and transfer tips that we learned along the way that you can implement as you're making any changes to your CDN or edge infrastructure, or really any major infrastructure pieces. We'll talk a little bit about the migration stages that we've built as a part of our process. We'll talk about some customer examples and then walk through how we can take this from a webinar and get started right away with making some of this happen. Anyway, diving into our migration services. I said it a few seconds ago, but our team has been doing this within Fastly for approximately 10 years. The years really add up, and we've been working with customers to re-architect lots of complex configurations from incumbent CDNs. We work with our customers to build custom migration plans around their business and their architecture, and we can be as involved as you want. We've done really, really heavy-duty lifts with some of the largest Fortune companies in the world, all the way through helping small startups, really, which is some quick advisory services to help them learn and hit the ground running faster. And all those are successful outcomes with us because it ultimately culminates in more people who have control over their own infrastructure, which is a great thing to see. Some of those options that we've done in the past with customers range from modernizing legacy systems, which is a lot of taking things that are working and giving them a deeper view and making sure that they fit modern software development practices and really meet the standards of a modern software team with modern infrastructure. You shouldn't be held back based on your vendor decisions. We also do a lot of work with our customers to streamline efficiency and making sure that even though they're using Fastly, we want them to use Fastly in the most efficient way possible, in the most cost-efficient way possible. And really, we are in the performance game, and so we spend a lot of time with our customers making sure that their approach to CDN and their approach to security and their approach to distributed compute is performant and scales effortlessly with the demands of their business. And as we're getting ready for things like Cyber 5 or the year-end shopping season, this is really, really prominent as a part of our work. But we want to talk about some of our most common questions that we walk through with our customers. These aren't secrets. We want to share them with you, but these are things that we've learned. But when we go in, we meet with customers about how they migrate CDNs. We want to start asking about, what do you like about your current CDN? There are many good options in the market. So we want to know what you like about your current configuration, but also we want to learn what don't you like, or what parts of your current configuration you feel limited by. We also try to ask, like, what parts of your application would you like to cache or would you like to protect with a CDN, but you haven't been able to? We find out that a lot of publishers are unable to protect things like their APIs or their HTML pages before they come to Fastly. And that's a really great way for us to add a very clear and tangible win right out of the gates. We also want to find out if you have any custom configurations in your legacy provider. We want to do our best to make those compatible with Fastly. We have an incredibly flexible platform. And so if you do something with one provider, it's overwhelmingly likely that we can help build a similar set of support within Fastly. Or alternatively, are there things that you have had to build into your application due to vendor limitations, like things like purge time or the lack of proper observability? These are all things that we want to take a first principles approach to and make sure that if you're using Fastly, you get the most value out of it. And that brings us to the testing process. Once we have a really good picture of where we want to go, we often test in the following ways alongside our customers. Obviously, if you have recommended ways that you're shifting traffic with your CDN today, we would get in line with those. But these are some common ways to test that we've seen. First of all, and I do this all the time when I'm debugging my own sites or helping with customers, and it's doing a local, in this case, because I'm on a Mac, an Etsy host file override for DNS to force traffic on a specific domain to go through a DNS. This is a really quick and very easy way to test Fastly in a real world scenario, to really embrace iterative development and try things out really quickly in a safe environment. The next big trend we've seen is local or load balancing of DNS and using that for shifting traffic, whether it's a percentage of traffic or some other configuration. We're happy to work with you and how to structure that. One particularly interesting way we've seen this done is that one customer was able to change the DNS systems within their offices to shift their CDN provider to Fastly to test. And that opened up several hundred live beta testers using the application right out of the gates without exposing their end customers to anything that was in development. So that was just kind of an interesting, fun way to do that. And if your application right now uses domain sharding, it's a bit of an outdated technique. It's no longer required for browser performance, but many legacy applications still utilize domain sharding. Being able to shift certain portions of your application via sharded domains or subdomains in your domains to Fastly, that's a really great way to test Fastly in a controlled environment, which again, safe testing is critical for infrastructure migrations. Ultimately though, part of this discovery process that we have is that we want to determine what our end state is. We want to determine how a migration is successful or if a migration is successful. And we would work with you directly to determine what those success factors are. If you already have a QA framework for your own software releases, we'd love to integrate with that. But ultimately, what we learned is we want to check in first if your site is still working. You might have QA processes for that. You might have time-tested methods for that. But first and foremost, we need to validate that if you make a change to your infrastructure, everything is working properly. And kind of as a subset of that, we want to find out if objects and assets are caching that should be caching, or more importantly, we want to find out that things that should not be caching are not caching. We respect HTTP max age headers and cache control headers, but it's always good to test, and we're happy to come up with a plan to do that alongside you. And of course, a part of that is we need to measure to make sure that we're getting the results that we anticipated. Things need to be more performant. Things need to be better. Things need to be faster if you're going to go through the lift of an infrastructure migration. And we work with you to set up what that definition of success is. And we work with you to go out and achieve it. Now, getting into that, these are some common issues and when customers are moving their CDN and their infrastructure over. Some of these are Fastly specific. Some of these are really good best practices for all infrastructure changes. One of the most common questions we get from new customers is understanding why certain objects are or are not caching. That often comes down to a better understanding of your cache control headers. that's really important to do a review before you start migrating, if possible. You can save yourself some whack-a-mole debugging and some headaches with that. Also, making sure that set cookies are set on objects properly and they're not set unnecessarily. Sometimes CMSs or frameworks may overdo it with applying set cookie headers in responses. And it's important to make sure that those are not there for cacheable content, because with Fastly and with any good HTTP compliant CDN, they break the cache. And going into other transfer tips, when you're working with Fastly or with any other provider that supports it, make sure you set up logging, and ideally real-time logging, as quickly as possible before moving your CDN over, because you need to get observability, and observability is the true source of success when you're migrating. And with Fastly, we have a great product called Shielding, which routes requests from the edge to a determined data center that is close to your origin. It makes everything faster. It makes everything more efficient. It minimizes the origin pull from your site. It's great. We recommend it for nearly every use case within Fastly, and you absolutely should set it up for your moving traffic over. But let's talk about the specifics of the experience. We have an extensive program management organization that has global coverage, and they're amazing. Watching experts do their job is always satisfying, and that's the best way that I could describe working with Fastly's program management office. We go through some really concrete steps with you, but those are always really flexible around your specific needs. We go through a deep pre-planning process to make sure that we understand your goals, your problems, your application, and your architecture. Then we start building alongside you. We want to build the initial services and configuration that fit your needs. Then we start the testing process. I've talked a little bit about testing in the past, but we work with you meticulously to determine how we test, what to test, what the success criteria is. And that's a repeat process. Even though it's a box there, it could be as big as the entire line put together, depending on the needs of our customers. And then we start going into shifting traffic and going live, and then ultimately post-implementation support and knowledge transfer. That's arguably one of the most important steps, because we spend a lot of time training you on what we built. We want you to be able to own these configurations and own this infrastructure instead of having to come back to us. We're always here for you. We love working with our customers, but if there's ever a case where a customer wants to move fast, we want them to be able to move at their own pace. And if that requires them to write code, if that requires them to understand the system, it's important for us to make sure that we go through that training and that education with you, so that way you're set up for success. And again, I talked a little bit about it, but these steps, we right-size them to every stage of customer. Whether it's a large customer where a migration might take several months, or if it's a small customer where we're helping a little bit as they actively test and they actively debug. We love working with large customers. We love working with scrappy small startups. It's a very satisfying job. Now let's talk about some of the successes we've had and kind of the wins and the learnings that we've had around that. For a global e-commerce leader, we worked with a customer who, in this case, they had 15 plus years of CDN rules on their past provider. These were undocumented, as you can imagine, and with 15 years of work, that's several generations of staff. And that team had determined that they were going to invest potentially 12, even more months to migrate all of their properties. And these were, close to 50 properties. It was a very complex engagement. But working with us, we were able to move a huge chunk of these rules over, simplifying things, removing a lot of the unnecessary bloat that had developed over all those years. And we got it done in about 3 months. That was just a reduction of an estimate of 12 months to 3 months. And in addition, just a general cost savings regarding cache coverage and origin offload of 50% over their past CDN. So Yeah, these are some of the beasts, but we can rise to the occasion, and we've done it many times over the past decade or so. And these are where we can really add some value. This is a user-generated content company. I won't read these quotes out, but we've included these to really describe some of the soft skills and some of the intangibles about how we approach this. We do our best to pair with our customers in Slack to understand what's going on with the developments that we're live developing alongside our customer teams. We want to be as involved as you will allow us to be. If you want us on site, we can find ways to make that happen. If you want us to collaboratively develop alongside you, then we can find ways to make that happen. If you want us to work async across different time zones, we're flexible in how we work to meet your needs. We take a lot of pride in our support, and that includes in the migration process. And again, we wanted to include this example of a financial institution to show that complexity is not always technical. Complexity is sometimes regulatory in nature, governmental in nature, and this particular company needed to address security and traffic concerns over an upcoming national holiday, and needed engagement quickly in a time-sensitive manner, and with a true partner, somebody who is going to be with them from the start of the engagement through their peak period of the national holiday in late December. And we were the most responsive option that we had, but we also offered a deep level of technical assistance to help set them up for success. It's more than just technical know-how. Sometimes it's relationships. Sometimes it's persistence and making sure that we can solve problems or solve long-running issues that previous providers have not been able to help with. And just so I can give up the mic for a quick second, but only a quick second, who here is contemplating migration from their current CDN to a new platform? Yeah. If you could do the raise hand function or put into the chat. Okay, we're seeing a few options on here. Right. All good. Okay. Yeah, it looks like we're getting a lot of responses. So thank you all for that. That's really good news. We are absolutely here to help you with that. We can help, again, extremely actively, or with groups like our support team. We're happy to help with quick questions in that process. Yeah. But the best way to get started with Fastly is to simply get started with Fastly. If you go to fastly.com, we have a prominent button at the top right of the top nav that says Try Fastly Free. Get started. We have a pretty simple sign-up form. You have the ability to get started. For network services, we give you the ability to test with some light traffic, and we give you 2 TLS certs to get started. Yeah, log in, get started, create a delivery service. Reach out to support if you have questions. We have really great documentation resources, and I think that might be an upcoming slide. Yep. Our documentation page is amazing at docs.fastly.com. We have API documentation and code examples at developer.fastly.com. Both are amazing resources, and I can't recommend them enough. The teams behind them are so passionate about what they build. And please check them out. They are designed to help get you started as quickly as possible. But one final thing before we wrap up and go to Q&A, we are running a limited time offer for no-cost migration and onboarding services. So my team will be able to roll up our sleeves and dive in and help you try out the system and try out the process with no cost to you, as well as up to 120 days of free testing for all services. There's details around that, and it varies. Some of the specifics may vary, but the long and short of it is we believe deeply that once you try it Fastly, you'll love it, and we are doing everything we can to make it easy and possible for you to kick the tires. So yeah, sign up. We'll get in there. We're happy to help. It's a joy to help our customers every day, and I'd love to help some of you all. And on that, I think that brings us to our Q&A. But the real reason that I come into work, and specifically come into work at Fastly, is that we're doing our best every day to make the internet a better place where all experiences are fast, safe, and engaging. That's our big mission statement. And my team's function, we see ourselves as an enabler or an accelerator. Your sites are, and your systems are what make the internet a fast, safe, and engaging place. And we do everything we can to help you fulfill those goals faster, or help you fulfill them more efficiently. So when you win, we win. When you succeed, we're extremely happy. And on that note, that actually is the final slide of the deck. So thank you very much. And I'd love to shift to Q&A.
Are there specific features from other CDNs that require extra consideration during a migration?
Yeah. Are there specific features from other CDNs that require extra consideration during a migration? I would say that one that really comes to mind is edge side includes, if you're using those heavily. Some CDNs have extensive support for edge side includes, which are kind of a legacy implementation. Things like modern JavaScript frameworks and AJAX calls have rendered those less relevant, but a lot of the prominent sites that you use every day utilize them still. We can work with you to port some of the more complex ones. A lot of the straightforward ones and the most common ones, Fastly will support out of the box. Yeah, that's one thing that may require some additional attention. Also, I think I see this referenced in a future question of, if there are specific features in your legacy CDN's infrastructure that may shape your current architecture, we would want to chat with you about those and make sure that we can support them properly with Fastly. Fastly has lightning fast deployment. We have lightning fast purge. We have real-time logging. We've seen some customers integrate, for example, a CMS with the slower purge time with their previous companies. And when they switched over to Fastly, our speed of purging was faster than their CMS's ability to update its own origin records. And so we ran into a race condition during rapid traffic times with them. And so we had to work with them to make sure that there was a confirmed write to their database, then triggering the instant purge. So that way we were pulling everything in there. It's kind of funny in hindsight, but it was a bit of a head scratcher when we encountered it initially. But that's something that really comes to mind.
Okay, looks like we have a few more. Can you expand on any learnings or best practices from DNS-based configuration testing?
Yeah, can you expand on any learnings on DNS-based configuration testing? Yes. I would say, well, some of this might be redundant to people who are already professionals in operating high-scale DNS or high-scale networks. But one of the mistakes that we've seen customers make is before they switch over to Fastly, they do not change their TTLs down to a very low number. Typically, DNS doesn't change much in a lot of applications, and as such, their DNS TTLs are set to something like an hour. Before you start testing with DNS, lower that TTL to something much shorter, like 5 minutes, or maybe even less if your budget and systems allow. Then switch over to Fastly, start testing. And so if you roll back, that rollback only happens in the 5 minutes or less that you set that DNS TTL to. If you have it still stuck at 1 hour, it takes 1 hour to ramp the CDN on, and it takes 1 hour to ramp the CDN off. So if you're in there configuring and deploying changes and all of a sudden you make a misconfiguration, you may not be able to roll back properly if you don't have your DNS TTL set. Of course, once you have everything dialed in with your infrastructure, then start to set those TTL to something a little bit more reasonable, and maybe even back to the hour or what you had before. But yeah, that's absolutely the thing that comes to mind with DNS.
Okay, great. How long do migrations generally take?
Yeah, how long do migrations generally take? Honestly, there's not a great answer for this because some large corporations are migrating dozens of sites and dozens of platforms. Some startups really just need a cursory review before they go live. It kind of depends on your technical aptitude, your business needs, and the amount of complexity that you're moving over. Our goal is to, even with these complex implementations, to get some sort of tangible win with Fastly as soon as possible. Our target KPI is to get that below 90 days. That accounts for sometimes there are big enterprises that require a big season of change and integration with their own roadmaps. Sometimes there are startups that are live in a matter of days or even a week. So yeah, there's not a great answer to that, but it kind of depends on complexity. Though, honestly, if I threw out a one size fits all approach, I think you all would be skeptical of that because one size does not fit all when it comes to the uniqueness of your businesses.
Awesome, thank you. If I wanted to start learning Fastly or set up a service myself, what resources are available to help me get up?
Yeah, we touched on that on some of the earlier slides. Definitely go to, we have a great support team, 24 hours. Anybody can access it. Anybody can start emailing with a real expert at any time. But also we have an extensive documentation page at docs.fastly.com. We have an extensive code and API documentation resource and developer.fastly.com. We have a really great forum and community.fastly.com. There are lots of really great ways to get started learning Fastly at your own pace.
All right, I think this is the last question. Has Fastly migrated complex configurations that have been in the works for a decade or over?
Yeah, has Fastly migrated complex configurations that have been in the works for over a decade? Yeah, that is probably the bread and butter of what my team does. When customers are able to get up on their own or get set up on their own or migrate lightweight options autonomously, everybody wins. But our team is specifically there to help with these big beasts of decade plus configurations, or in some cases, multiple decades of configuration logic. We have tooling in place to simplify operations and highlight large and complex configurations for review. We do extensive architecture reviews with you. When you're moving something that hefty and that old, it does require us to work with you to understand your application and your requirements. And we don't shy away from that. We love to dive in. And that's the fun part of the job, is understanding our customers' businesses and helping them be as efficient and as successful as possible with our tools. All right. And I'm getting a signal that we're getting close on time and we're running low on questions. If you have any questions, you can reach out to our sales team at sales@fastly.com, or you can email general questions to info@fastly.com. I've thrown out our support email a few times. I'm available for questions on LinkedIn. And if there's nothing else, then everybody have a great day. And thank you very much for joining.